We used to talk a lot about, everyone talked about how many impressions. When we fired the spokes candies a few Super Bowls ago, it was 25 billion impressions. So it's like 3 times the global population. It's
Okay.
like, what does that even mean? And so you would be quoting these numbers and thinking, I don't know what that means for the business. And those days are over.
This is CMO Insider, where you'll get candid takes on the marketing power players and power moves. My name's Lara O'Reilly. I'm a senior correspondent at Business Insider. I'm joined today by Rankin Carroll. Rankin is Chief Brand Officer of Mars Snacking. Rankin, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Lara. Great to be here.
Thank you so much. So you look after lots of really exciting brands at Mars. You've been there for 23 years, 24 years. So Skittles, Cheez-Its, Kellogg's, Pringles, and a lot of those brands only just recently came under your remit. You recently went through a very big acquisition, Kellanova, something like $36 billion coming into the fold. Can you talk to me about what it's like looking after a big acquisition like that?
We've got, strong founder cultures at both Kellanova, formerly Kellogg's, W.K. Kellogg, the founder, and that whole story, 100-plus-year-old company, combining with Mars, also over a century old and a family-owned business, the Mars family. And I think the thing, you've got to honor the past. You've got brilliant brands they've built themselves as icons. Pringles or Cheez-It or Pop-Tarts, personal favorite. Respecting that culture, respecting that, brand archaeology, what made these brands the icons they are, and never forgetting that. And then remaining consistent, because the worst thing that can happen is you get, what we call the new brand manager syndrome is, I'm going to come in and change things. Well, that would be a fatal error. How do you take the brilliance that you've been gifted and work with it, and then build it into some of the systems that have helped us build success at Mars to help further them for growth going forward?
Can you give an example of how that comes to life? It's kind of hard to comprehend how that then translates into someone picking up this candy bar from the shelf versus another.
We believe this, truly getting data at the heart of what we do, starting with the consumer, and then multiplying that and enhancing that through technology, is a game changer for how we think about brand growth. So once you accept that, but how we reach consumers versus big vehicles, big buys that we used to do, we're now breaking that up into a multiplicity of reach vehicles.
So you would do a big TV buy.
Yeah, formerly would have done one thing, one channel, big reach, and hope for the best.
Do it for 3 months and then move on to the next thing.
70%, 2+ reach. I think what we're now doing is finding still large, but more precision around groups of audiences. So we're talking to multiple groups of audiences and able to customize and personalize, if you will, our content for those audiences. And that means that our consumers' experience of that will be, depending on who you are, what your motivations are, what your passion points are, you will see one message coming from, say, Snickers. But if you're in a different group, that message would be served to you certainly in a different channel, in a different media, and shaped differently.
So might something like Snickers be an example of this? I remember the campaign that you did around the Euros, the soccer tournament, with Jose Mourinho.
We obviously want to build brands with meaning, as we always have. So great brands that are consistently delivered with distinctive brand propositions. That will never change. That is the bedrock of our success as a company, the bedrock, by the way, of Kellanova's success as a company, and now combined. But then I think the big difference is now we need to personalize at scale. Today's consumers expect to be able to get involved with a brand, co-create, have a voice, participate. Not all of them, but a good portion of them. If you take those principles into how we work and apply them to the Snickers example you raised.
Yeah, can you take us there?
Yeah, that was fundamentally starting from a Snickers play and the fandom. So we know the behavior around the Euros, around football, is banter. Okay. So essentially, we cloned Jose, in partnership with Jose. The concept was own goal. So what own goal, what error have you made because you're hungry, Snickers? And he would just give a very special bit of banter back to you. And then, by the way, you could send that to your friend, they could send it on, and it just exploded. So that experience was something we never would have done before, but we had the data, we had the access, we had the technology capability. And by the way, that whole experience in terms of governance for a company like ours was quite a journey. You can imagine what would go in.
User-generated content can go wrong very quickly.
It can go really wrong. So it was remarkable. So it was a big step for us because it got us over the governance and started to trust ourselves, trust the technology to take care of things. and probably convince the organization that we could enter into these spaces.
So talk me through when you're in the room with whoever it was, the CFO, the legal team, and you're saying, trust me, this will be fine.
We sat with lawyers, with our brand safety team, with our security team, with the brand team, with the agency team, and brought that group together from the beginning. Everything we're talking about really is about bringing people together from the beginning so everyone understands. Because you don't show up and sort of, it's a big reveal, ta-da, and have 14 people go, no, you don't. Like, are you crazy?
It's not like the Don Draper doing a presentation.
That's just not,
there you are, here it is.
It's just not real anymore. So I think you've got to bring them along. Why? Not just to get over the line, because they will contribute. Because we were entering into territories and it was like the jungle. And so how do we enter the jungle safely? Well, you bring experts with you who know what they're doing. And so I think this was one of our earliest pilots. The great news is we have scaled that. We took it into other countries. We've also scaled it in other brands. We did another treatment with WhatsApp and Meta on Twix, which was the Twix harmonizer, which again was you could read in things and it would send messages to your friends, but harmonize the bad news on a voice note. So it just was the beginning of us trying different technologies, different ways of entertaining consumers and getting them involved so they could co-create.
And how do you go about measuring that? With something like a TV campaign, there's years worth of research and GRPs and media mix modeling and all of that that goes into measuring whether a campaign was seen by the people you wanted it to be seen by. When it's something like that, where there isn't necessarily, even clicks perhaps, like how do you go about working out whether that was a success or not?
We used to talk a lot about, everyone talked about how many impressions you landed. We literally, I think we did an M&M's when we fired the spokes candies a few Super Bowls ago. It was 25 billion impressions. So it's like 3 times the global population. It's like, what does that even mean? And so you would be quoting these numbers and thinking, I don't know what that means for the business. And those days are over. And I think, impressions or views, impressions, it's hard to quantify the impact of that. So what we're working on now, we have a development partnership with, for instance, a company called Alembic. So we're talking about practically, what does that mean? Snickers has a partnership with, say, WWE Wrestling in the US. That has a broadcast. On that broadcast, the announcer happens to talk about Snickers. That moment gets talked about in a podcast later on. That leads to a sale in Texas. Their LLM can actually get a hold of that chain of events and start to attribute value to it. Just to give you a simple example. There's data science behind this. We've had experts check it. So
I was about to say, you must have to audit that. Right?
Yeah, of course. But don't trust me, trust the expert. But the point is, we're exploring that at scale now and trying to push into new ways to get a hold of truly measuring the business value created by earned. So we are working through connecting all those systems to try to understand that, and that is a journey. And by the way, that's what makes this job so amazing. Is we are in a new age of learning. We are in a new age of developing our skills. So if you're curious, if you have, a bias for learning, it couldn't be a better time to do what we're doing.
And now a word from our sponsor, LinkedIn Ads, to talk about how to cut the bull spend from your marketing budget.
Marketing leaders today are under more pressure than ever to prove real impact and concrete business outcomes. I'm joined by Keith Browning, Director of Global Brand Marketing at LinkedIn, to learn more. What makes LinkedIn uniquely suited to deliver measurable business outcomes, especially in B2B?
LinkedIn is the largest professional network in the world, so we're built for this. We're built for B2B. So that means, firstly, being able to find the right people. So, you can target by job title or seniority, company, etc. But there's also the professional context component as well. So people come to LinkedIn to learn, to evaluate potential solutions, and certainly to make buying decisions as well.
I wanted to talk about, you mentioned M&Ms and firing your spokes candies. And I wanted to talk about some of the times when you've taken maybe a bit of a risk creatively as a marketer. So a couple of years ago, M&Ms kind of lent into the more kind of like diverse side of its brand. And it touched a nerve in the US and there was a backlash. Can you talk me through that story, but also how you reacted, or maybe actually to the contrary, when you decided not to react and not to immediately pull or immediately back down?
First of all, we are custodians of iconic brands, and they're, by the way, owned by a family business. So you are very conscious of your responsibility in that regard. So risk taking, it's easy to talk about risk, but these are assets in someone's family assets. And so when you enter into things like this, you want to be resonant in culture and possibly a little bit provocative, but provocation in the context of who you are as a brand. And I think where brands get into trouble is when they step out of their lane, they step into areas where, why are you even in this conversation? Versus in that example, when we
So the example was?
the example of when we fired the spokes candies, and there was a reaction to that. I think we could have taken ourselves a bit seriously and taken it more seriously than an M&M's character ever would, and reacted in a certain way. But I think what we did instead was we had fun with it. And we responded with Green tweeting, did my shoes just break the internet?
Yeah.
Instead of saying, getting sort of a little bit on our soapbox, or et cetera. So I think we reacted in a way that M&M's would.
But I think also in politically charged times, and when consumers are feeling the hit on their wallet, sometimes marketers can opt to play it safe and not want to take risks. And so it seemed like you kind of zigged where others zagged at that point.
Yeah, listen, I think I come back to, I think we try to do what the brand would do naturally and stay in character and stay in voice. The same thing is true of, if I look at Skittles and the support for LGBTQ, we've been doing that for going on 10 years. Doing what comes naturally, continuing a behavior you've established over time, you've built the expectation. You've built it's part of who you are as a brand. So, because I think sometimes brands would launch into things for maybe good reasons, but not have done the scoping of how could this play out? Because you don't want to be there kind of holding the bag going, where are we going now? Because that's the worst place to be, obviously.
Right, and then it's the apology tweet and the ending the campaign or whatever, and nobody ends up looking good.
So I just don't think we've entered into areas that are high risk. Because it's easy to say take risks as a brand leader. Well, what does that really mean?
A lot of marketers that I speak to at the moment are talking about how difficult it has become to cut through on digital, particularly on social media.
I think what's critical to cut through is it's still a game of compelling stories. So whatever media, whatever social platform you're in, if you are not creating experiences that are compelling, enjoyable, entertaining, I think that's the word that we've slightly forgotten about, entertainment. People are still looking for content that takes captures their attention. I don't want to steal their attention, right? Because it's their attention.
And you have fun brands, but right? You've got a portfolio of really fun brands that you can play around
whether
with.
It's whether it's what we do on Skittles, whether we are making giving you the opportunity to win the experience of having a commercial made in your front yard. Well, that's a bit of fun. Or we are, as I say, creating an experience for you to send some banter to your mates around football. So it's going into their passion points. It's going into their lives and saying, we can bring something to you. But that's a big move for a company like ours. You have to let go. But we're getting more confident in doing that. So I think it's building a culture that is okay with that, creating the guidelines and the guardrails to protect your brand as you do that, but then being bold and being ambitious and piloting your way into things that you can actually scale.
And talking about kind of loosening the leash around the brand a little bit, how does that fit into things like your influencer marketing strategy? How are you building a program around that?
It took a while for us to go professional. Influencers aren't it's not just the Wild West. I think it started a bit like the Wild
West.
Right,
you're not just DMing people
and just saying, hey, have a go. They're professional, they're contracted, and they're starting to be represented by they're getting consolidating, bringing together in different organizations, including our agency partners. So they're becoming another channel, another way to engage with the consumer. And we know, fortunately or unfortunately, consumers trust influencers more than they trust brands. So if we are working with them and they authentically believe in what the brand's doing, what the brand's saying, they become advocates for us. So understanding those relationships and finding ways to work with them and giving them the ability to open up and co-create and create things that are relevant for their channels in their own voice. What does that look like and how are we building? So we did a thing in Germany with an influencer there that actually launched a song that was in the top 10 in Spotify, linked to extra gum, which is remarkable. But so that's just one simple example of going through a new media, if you will, through an influencer in a way that was relevant for her audience. That really was a very positive thing for our brand.
And now a word from our sponsor, LinkedIn Ads, to talk about how to cut the bull spend from your marketing budget.
LinkedIn's Cut the Bull Spend campaign urges marketers to rethink how they evaluate performance and where their budgets actually drive impact. I'm here with Keith Browning, Director of Global Brand Marketing at LinkedIn, to learn more. How do you define bull spend in practical terms?
So I'd say bull spend is really wasted advertising spend. It's any investment that leads to a great looking dashboard. So the numbers look good, the arrows are going in the right direction, but really it's not actually doing anything to drive the business forward. So it doesn't hold up to scrutiny.
How does LinkedIn help marketers reduce waste and increase efficiency in real terms?
At LinkedIn, you don't have to pay for attention from people who are never going to buy from you. Mass reach works great if you're selling breakfast cereal, not so much if you're selling CRMs. That's really where LinkedIn is different.
We've touched upon AI a little bit in our conversation so far, but I'm interested, Rankin, in how you're using AI day to day. Are you vibe coding?
No, I'm not. No, listen, we are using it quite actively. It's easy to get caught up in a shiny new toy and run there with abandon. It's exciting, but it's very dangerous. So we have to be careful. So I just stress that. So we're not sort of it's not reckless. That said, I would say that we're applying it probably in three ways: in how we manage and meet consumers where they are, then to the making of the content. AI is starting to have immense impact. Our creativity starts with human beings, and it always will. And I'm convinced that so far, AI isn't originating anything. It's replicating what's come in the past, and it does a brilliant job. And then the last thing, as I mentioned earlier, it's coming into measurement. So how we are able to measure, that is a mind-opening space around measuring the impact of what we do. So in those areas, the media, the making, and the measurement, huge impact.
And AI in advertising and marketing brings all of those opportunities that you just mentioned, but also there's a lot of anxiousness about kind of things like job losses and what's that going to mean for people in their early stage of their careers. How are you thinking about building your teams and nurture the next generation of marketing talent?
Yeah, it's an immense responsibility. Because I think the simple equation is you take out the work, well, you take out the people. I don't buy that. I think you take out the work that drags people down and elevate and give them an opportunity to do much more interesting and creative things. So I think the potential is to elevate what everyone's doing and push everyone up a level by taking out stuff that takes up your time and allowing you to focus on strategic thinking, on creativity, on getting to fresh, brilliant ideas that will engage consumers, and learning how to use AI. So more time to learn, more time to understand how to use the tools at your disposal. I do think the other side of this, though, is there's a risk, and the backlash has already started. So I think if we start overplaying our AI hands, that could result in consumers pushing back. Now, I don't pretend to have a crystal ball and how that's going to play out, but in 10 years, a marketing role and what we do as CMOs will have changed utterly. There's huge advantages. There's risks that go with it, and I think we have to learn our way through it.
But is it changing, for example, the types of people that you hire, or are you? I mean, for example, you said that you wanted to kind of do away with some of the drudgery and open people up to doing the more exciting work. Does that kind of change the mix? How ideas get presented, how the work gets kind of farmed out?
I think what's changed is I spend a lot of time with our digital technology partners. So the CMO and the CDO partnering together, I think that age is upon us, and I think you're seeing people merging those jobs together, and you're seeing CDOs become CMOs and vice versa. I do think also that young people coming up through the company are much more data savvy, more data capable, more tech capable, and reverse mentoring, all those things. That's working to help us stay on top of things. So they have a big role in that regard. So actually, the reverse is true. They're not being pushed out or pushed down. They're actually coming up and getting more connectivity.
So it's an opportunity to get FaceTime with someone like you. And what's your advice for kind of early stage marketers? So someone entering the profession right now, like what would your advice be about what they should focus on and why they should be so excited about the kind of marketing profession in 2026 and beyond?
What are we looking for? We're looking for people who are curious. So how are you as a young marketer demonstrating and leveraging your curiosity, having the ambition to try things and bring them forward in the org, because people want it. You talk to young marketers, it's like, why would anyone want to talk to me? It's like, well, because you're working on really important brands, you're working on our precious assets, because you are seeing and experiencing things both as a consumer and as a marketer that we're not. So bring that into the conversation.
And in a sentence, Rankin, what's the thing you're working on right now that you're most excited about?
Measurement. Honestly, working on how we measure the impact of, we have a new media mix, we have new technology coming to play, as we've talked about. We are, exploring, experimenting, and piloting new things. If we get measurement right, then we can scale with much more confidence and much more effectiveness.
Great. Let's get measuring. Rankin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Great.
And thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed this kind of content, please like and subscribe to our channel. We also have lots more CMO interviews, analysis, news, scoops, all the rest of it at businessinsider.com.